live chat with them, and they don't mind if I go first. As I mentioned before, my name is Pam Keith, and I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. For those of you who don't know me, I am a resident of Palm Beach County. I was brought here by Florida Power and Light to be senior labor counsel for them. I'm the daughter of a U.S. diplomat. I've lived all over the world. I went to college and high school in California. I went to law school at Boston College in Massachusetts. When I was done with my law training, I went into the United States Navy and served as a U.S. Navy JAG for 4 years. And then when I was done with that, 19 months of that 4 years were spent as officer in charge of a legal detachment in Bahrain. So I served in the Persian Gulf, and I know a lot about how our military, how taxing that kind of duty is on our military people. I also know a lot about UN sanctions, since that's what we were doing over there. And when I came back to the United States, I served for another year in Washington, D.C. When I came out of the Navy, I joined a big law firm in Washington. I've been at law firms all the way up to the point where I was recruited by FP&L to come to Florida. When I was recruited by them, they were very smart. They reached out to me in February and brought me down to Juno Beach, and it was 82 sunny degrees, and it was like 16 in Chicago at the time. And so, even though I didn't know a soul in Florida, it was a great job opportunity, and I realized that it was paradise, and so it didn't take a whole lot of arm twisting to get me here. I've always had a heart for service, and I know what an honor and a privilege it is to be an American and to serve Americans. It is really, a lot of times we navel gaze about what is wrong here, because we want so badly to reach and attain the American dream. But we mustn't lose sight of how wonderful this country really is, and how blessed we are to have the mechanism to engage in the kinds of debates and discussions that we have in a room like this. We have the capacity for a better union because we have the mechanisms to make a better union. We have freedom of speech, we have opportunity, we have a constitution that gives us some really good parameters on how to function, and every day each one of us are engaged in the process of forming a more perfect union, starting with our own households and moving through our communities and all the way up through our government. So my message as a United States Senator, it's not just that, I'm a Democrat, which is all fine and dandy, but that I have real ideas and proposals, and I'm the one who's going to celebrate the process that we go through. I know that process is sometimes extremely painful. I mean, just recently we had this big discussion about the Confederate flag, and that was painful. There are people who are really hurt and angry, feel attacked. There are people who are, but see, we wouldn't get anywhere if we didn't engage in that national conversation. When we look at what happened with gay marriage, we went from 70% people thinking one way to 70% people thinking another way in a matter of 10 years because we engaged in a national conversation. And when we do that, when people are allowed to get out there and say what they believe, they're subjected to scrutiny. And so when you hear all these arguments, over time, you start to think that argument stops making sense to you. That is what has happened with gay marriage. That is what has happened with the Confederate flag. And that can happen on a lot of other topics as well. We need not be afraid of polarization, because polarization just means we're out there talking with passion. The thing is, somebody's got to say, I love you even though I disagree with you. And that's me. I love my conservative, my Republican brothers and sisters, even if they don't love me back, because without them, we would know who we are. You have to have that contrast to test your own ideas. So I embrace that process. I'm an advocate. That's what I do. It's what I know, and it's what I'm good at. Now, I know we had this discussion. I don't want to suck up my panel members' time. But we had this discussion about what's going on. And I think there's a lot of people who can identify some problems. I'm putting out a 3-part series that's really focused around what happened to Sandra Bland, but you can see it, a little blog series. The first video talks about what happened with Sandra, what happened when pure discretion was left to the police officer. Because the vast majority of police officers exercise their discretion with good judgment 99% of the time, right? But when they don't exercise their discretion with good judgment, there doesn't seem to be much recourse. The second one talks about what the effect of that is. as a labor and employment attorney, I can tell you that every person can justify any particular stop or any particular employment decision, but then you stand back from 36,000 feet and you see a pattern, because that judgment is exercised the same way by multiple people in the same, and it creates a pattern. If you look at Walmart, they had an employee population that was 60% female or something like that, and a management track that was nowhere reflective of the employee pool from which they were pulling. And any individual supervisor could explain why they select, or managers to say, well, I picked this person because he was a go-getter, and I picked that person because he had the better schedule, and I picked that person because he really was, great in that department. I picked people from meat and not from cosmetics, whatever. But at the end of the day, when you looked at it from 36,000 feet, you saw that there were only 22% of the management were female, right? And that's what's happening with law enforcement. Every individual cop can justify why they're doing what they're doing, but then you look at it from 36,000 feet and you see that African Americans are stopped more frequently. They're incarcerated more frequently. They're put into custody more frequently for the same kinds of transgressions. That's why you can't look at it at a microscopic level. Now, I can identify that as the problem. The question is, what is the solution? And I have one thought I'm going to throw out for you, and Alex, I would appreciate your feedback. And that is that we have to understand how officers are called to task when they do go wrong, right? 80%, maybe even more, of officers are unionized. You can't just reprimand an officer, right? They have rights. They have rights to due process. And that means that they have representation. They go through an arbitration process or a grievance process, and that gets looked at. But the problem isn't that they have an arbitration process. The problem is that process is entirely insular. Nobody from the community gets to participate in that, see what happens. Now, I've done a lot of arbitrations in my career, and most arbitrators are great arbitrators. The problem is there's such a thing as an arbitral bias, and that bias is that arbitrators do not compare a good cop to a bad cop. What they do is compare a bad cop to the other bad cops they've seen. And they determine on the continuum of bad cops, how bad is this cop? That's what happens. It's not because they're bad people or they're not smart people, but it's just what happens over time when they decide, well, should this cop get his badge removed? Should he be put on administrative leave? Should he be suspended? So on and so forth. I think that there has to be a mechanism to create a conduit between the community that is being policed and the officers that are policing them. Because right now, those are sequestered off. Not a person in this room knows who's been reprimanded, how many times they've been reprimanded, what they've been reprimanded for, and whether or not they've been sufficiently punished. Nobody in this room can talk to that. We can't even identify what rules are in place. We have no say in that. We have no say in how they're trained in their academy as to what is and what is not a proper stop and frisk. We have no way. And so I think the solution is to create some transparency in that process so that the arbitrators and the arbitral system is answerable to the community. Doesn't have to be answerable on every case, every time, all over the place. But certain categories of incidences ought to have at least one community representative sitting in on the process. That can at least allow the community to have eyes and ears in what is going on. I don't know if there are people, I know that that's controversial. So I'm not saying, I know that's controversial. There are a lot of people who are going to say, ooh, I don't like that. Especially people in the law enforcement community who may be like, I don't like that. People don't like change, right? But we have to have a real answer to how the community connects with law enforcement. And I have not heard not a single candidate say, here's how the community can know how officers are being held accountable. And I think that that's a step, a part of the puzzle. So, I've given my spiel. I'd love to get your support. But first you got to get to know me. So go to pamkeith.com. That is my website. And you will see a whole lot more about me. My bio, my position statements, my videos, there's all kinds of stuff. And over time you're going to be seeing a whole lot more as the newspapers and whatever are starting to really get hip to the fact that I'm here, I'm staying here, and I'm a real legitimate candidate. So keep your eyes open, but please educate yourself on who the candidates are. And know that it's not the party who determines who's going to be our next senator, it's you guys. So thank you for your time, and I turn it over to